Hello, everyone, and welcome to Claris Engage Beyond, our Claris Executive Q&A with Claris CEO Brad Freitag and our Vice President of Engineering, Peter Nelson. We're really glad that you're with us today. Thank you so much for joining. Before we get started, a few reminders. The information provided in today's session is for informational purposes only and is not a binding commitment by Claris. Please take a minute to read through the rest of what you see on this slide and abide by this notice. Additionally, we want to provide the best experience possible for today's Webex, so I wanted to just go over a few logistics. For those of you that have been with us before, this might be redundant, but it's important to note if you have any technical issues at any time, you can contact Webex technical support. We provided that contact information in the chat. We also recommend that you join via computer audio, but if you need to dial in, the dial-in numbers and information is also in the chat. And if you're able, please shut down other applications that may draw bandwidth to optimize the experience in viewing our presentation and session today. Additionally, you can view the Webex and the presenters however you like, and we've highlighted a few special options that we recommend. So please take a few minutes to click that layout button and view our speakers however you prefer for today's session. And no surprise, it is a Q&A session, so we will be utilizing the Q&A panel in the Webex events window. You can access it in the bottom right of the window by clicking those three horizontal dots. We ask that when submitting questions, you do submit them to all panelists, and we will be working to get those questions over to Brad and Pete throughout today's session. So without further ado, I will introduce myself once again. I'm Janine Campbell, our Manager of Community Relations here at Claris, and I'm thrilled to be your host for today's session. We have gotten some great insights from the questions you've submitted, and we are going to make sure we cover a lot of what we've heard you talking about and asking us about, in addition to the questions that come in today. I'm also really thrilled to be joined by my colleague, Wes Powell, so I'm going to take a minute to let Wes introduce himself as well, a familiar face. Hey, Wes, how's it going?
Hi, thanks, Janine. Thank you. It's great to be here with everybody today. Quick introduction about myself. I'm one of the directors of engineering at Claris, and I've been with the company a little over 13 years now. And in fact, I've spent 5 of those years working for Pete. A big part of my role is to keep Pete honest by building all the great things he presented during the keynote and what he talks about beyond. And with that introduction, I'd like to go to our first question that was submitted. And the question for the panel today is, we saw during the keynote the mention of professional low code. Could you provide us some more details of what that means for Claris and Claris developers?
Sure, happy to get to the question, Wes, and thanks for kicking it off. I should remind everybody that, or share with everybody that Wes makes a point to grow out hair to the fullest length possible, just to rub it into Peter and I. So point taken, and we are jealous. Great to be here. So the first question, and I don't know if we could pull up the slide, but it related to the positioning on professional low code. I'm not seeing the slide, but hopefully somebody else is seeing it.
Let me grab that. I'll pull that up right now, Brad. Give me 1 sec.
Great. And, you know, as Andrew mentioned, we are talking about low code because it's the way the category has been described by so many. We talked about our category as workplace innovation platform, which from a thought leadership perspective, we continue to believe in and continue to drive, but we haven't seen adoption of that language. So low code, a few things that I think are important to represent on this slide. One is that we recognize what we do well in the continuum of the low code category as defined by analysts. And we're not the strongest for a first time to low code developer end user experience. It's not our strength. We have breadth and depth of capability that has been honed over the course of decades. So our position here is to focus on what we do well. And when you try to marry those capabilities with an audience, the audience that we talked about that is most important to us, the most important customers are people who earn their living on our platform and people who identify as Claris developers. And in that sense, we provide a capability set that's really important. And our goal is to grow that capability set so that that critical customer set can continue to thrive. And until we do that with improved experience, stability, performance, scale, we don't want to shift. We don't want to focus on other areas. So I think, that's really what this means. There is, to summarize, there is some balance between thought leadership language around workplace innovation, category language, as analysts and press talk about it with low code. I personally don't care for low code language. It doesn't sound flattering. So I wish it weren't kind of more mainstream, but it is, and that's how we're balancing our work within that category as we evolve our identity.
Awesome.
Peter, anything you want to add to that?
I think he said no. Did you say no, Pete?
Sorry, I did say no. Somehow I got.
Awesome, we can hear you now. Great. Well, I'll ask a follow-up, and it's not exactly a follow-up to professional low code, and I'll keep the slide up because I think we may want to refer to a slide on this one. But I'm looking for a little bit of an elaboration or clarification on the innovator's dilemma that was brought up during the kickoff last week. Is that a story of continuity? How could you elaborate on that for further clarity?
And that one I can take. I'd rather do it with the innovator's dilemma. There we go. Slide up. And yeah, Brad and I got a bunch of questions about this slide and what we were trying to convey here. And I think when Brad talked to it, he made a point of don't look at the exact scale, don't fixate on that, just focus on the general shapes of things. And when you look at the blue Claris FileMaker shape, it is true for any technology platform that it goes through this sort of an S-curve progression during its life cycle, and it goes through a time of rapid growth and innovation and value adding, which the FileMaker platform absolutely has, and then it plateaus. They all do. It becomes more and more expensive to add new functionality onto this large beast. And so that's what we're trying to show with the blue line. We've added the Connect platform to Claris's portfolio, and what we're trying to show here in green is just that it is a value add in capability and in value to the organization because it's a new platform. It's one we can grow and expect to grow at a rate that's faster in terms of capabilities added than what we can do with the FileMaker platform. That doesn't mean we're not investing in the FileMaker platform. We absolutely are. You're just not going to see the sort of rapid growth in it that you did when that S-curve was going straight up in FileMaker. And then our job in engineering, though, is to create an opportunity for ourselves to get some more rapid growths in value and innovation and capabilities. And a significant part of how we are going to be doing that in the future is through the new stuff, tying it back into the old stuff. But at the end of the day, none of these platforms are going away. They all work together, serving each other, augmenting each other. But there are different places in our code bases where we are going to be able to drive innovation faster than others.
Janine, can I tack on two things, one to this and one to the prior slide? On this, as a design principle for Claris, we're aiming towards simplicity. And so particularly around packaging and pricing and licensing, I've had a lot of questions, what's the intended bundle? Is this intended as a single bundle? And again, just from a design principle, ideally, this would be one simple package with all the capabilities that was really easy to license. Whether we're going to be able to make it that elegant, I don't know. It's harder, the permutations start to add up, but that is the design principle in the way we're thinking about the platform. And the other point I wanted to quickly mention, just following up to a question Vince had thrown in around, the positioning, his concern that, beginners enter the platform, then become developers, and he's afraid of that secretary will be forgotten by Claris. And as Vince says, I was that secretary. Totally get it, Vince. Our intention is to improve the experience in such a way that we will reach a much wider audience than we reach today. But sequentially, we're prioritizing an improved experience, improved value for that critical customer set of people we described, the people I described earlier. So it's just a sequencing issue, and we'll get that. We want to get, nail this piece, and then we'll look to expand markets.
The other thing, if you can go back to the dilemma slide.
It's keeping me on my toes, but yes.
Anything new that you stand up, you've got to build simple before you can build complex. And so while we understand, our target market and the nature of our community, our partners, and what they need from us, and are working continually to understand them, it is true by nature that much of what we stand up on the new stuff side, especially at first, is going to be simple by nature. And we are going to work very hard to be a user experience company and make what we're standing up approachable and consumable by someone without a deep understanding of how that platform works. So there will be, I would argue, a much better onboarding experience in Claris's future. Has to be.
Great.
And then for Sean's point about the FileMaker flatlining, again, I want to make clear, it's not that there's not going to be investment in the FileMaker platforms. There are. It's that no matter what, every single platform goes through an S-curve like that because it gets more complex. So even as we put time into the FileMaker platforms, they can't grow as fast. They can't expand as fast as they have in the past. They just can't. All right.
Thanks, Pete.
Are there more questions coming in, or do we want to pull one of the pre-baked ones?
Well, I think we have a pre-baked one, as you called it, related to what you're talking about here with new stuff. A simple question for you: when will the new stuff be available?
I don't know, Wes. When it's going to be available? Let me answer that one for you. We have an Engage event scheduled this next summer in Tennessee. I am very confident that some version of new stuff will be available there or prior to there. That said, I would really like to see some early previews of it in some people's hands much sooner than that, as soon as January of this coming year, for some people to play with. How do you like that answer, Wes? Yeah, no,
I dig it.
I love it. It's great. Here, I'll just follow up, and I know you both touched on this a little bit, but maybe elaborate further on investments looking forward. Will the FileMaker platform continue to be improved, or are we really focusing investments on the new stuff? And is there anything you could speak to about investments in the future of the platform?
Sure. We absolutely intend to continue investing in FileMaker. We see continued value. It's had decades of durability. It's not going away anytime soon. So yeah, plain and simple, we are continuing to invest in FileMaker.
Ken Newell's got a question here about Claris being concerned about sprawl and building too many things that don't essentially play and work well together. And he says, in the final analysis, good design of data carries the day. I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more, Ken. And so I am focused and fixated on making sure that what we do stand up, works well together, works seamlessly together, is intuitive to use. I'll use your language, that carries the day at the end, much more than a tweak of a feature in a corner. It's critical to me that our products are well designed and well designed to work together going forward.
Wes, we're getting some questions about what to expect in the new stuff. So
Absolutely.
I want to lead in with before that though, a question around, can we assume that the new stuff is what was presented over, the last couple of years as the future of the platform and extended in a certain way? Can you speak to that a little bit before we get into the details of what it will be built on and the specifics we're getting?
I'll give a quick response, and Peter, feel free to chime in. But the vision has been custom apps, integrations, then layering in workflow automation, and to do that intelligently. That's the aim, that's the intention, that's the vision. So I don't think the vision has changed. I think the mechanics, the sequence as we shift to the engineering, which I'll now transition to Peter, determines different timing deliverables, but high level vision is consistent.
Yeah, the high level, the language I use internally is, where the North Star is hanging, I think has stayed relatively the same. Part of what's changing, just frankly with me coming in, is a focus on shoring up some areas of infrastructure first before we start building workflow automation and some things like that. So we need a software stack that's capable of relatively inexpensive web deployments that we can leverage to build things like better versions of WebDirect, that we can use to allow our properties to run on any mobile platform, regardless who makes it, and things like that. And that we can develop on quickly and safely, securely. Things like that took precedence over providing workflow functionality day one in engineering. So there's some resequencing of events within engineering, but the overall direction or goal, I would argue, is still the same. And I actually think we're set up to get there faster. We're just shoring up some foundations. There was another question here about Connect. If Connect is such a growth opportunity, why has the rate of new connectors been so slow in growing? It's a matter of priorities for us as well. You heard Brad talk about a really, really critical engagement with Apple School Manager and what that can do for FileMaker visibility and the number of new school districts that we are able to touch with our properties. That's taken a lot of investment and focus for us. But we still have very, very near term on our roadmap development of work that should accelerate connector creation for the platform. And I don't know if that's been talked about publicly before and what I can say there. So Brad, you can chime in there.
Yeah, I mean the design intention is that we will build a developer kit so that people on this call could build connectors, could create flows and exchange those in our marketplace. If we haven't talked about that, we can talk about it.
Right. So yeah, that's coming in the near term for the Connect platforms.
One question here that was just kind of about what language are we coding on in the new stack, and let me emphasize, continued investments in FileMaker speak to calculations, functions, scripts. There's a whole library of those that have been developed, and our intention is to continue evolving those, adding more to them. But we recognize the power and leverage of all of you knowing these things, and we want to provide continuity on that skill set as a leverage point for the platform, that's our intention, and we also want to enhance it. So, Peter, anything you want to add to that?
Was that question about what sort of scripting and development languages we provide internally, or what we're building the new stuff on top of? I don't see the question.
It didn't specify, and the questions keep moving, so I'm having trouble following up.
If the question was about what are we writing the new stack in, we're writing in a bunch of different things. Back end's Mongo, front end you can think of as React over Redux. And if that means something to you, great. And if it doesn't, then that's fine too.
Does it need to matter? Yeah.
That's what we're writing in.
Pete, it looks like there's some excitement around the new ESS core. Can you talk more about that a little bit and what migration might look like once it's out in the world?
Yeah, so the existing Draco engine is a really, really interesting beast and a powerful beast. At its core, though, it is a SQL database engine with structured tables and relations, etc. The back end for the new stuff we are standing up is a NoSQL engine. There was a question about that. It's a Mongo back end currently, both for cloud deployments and on-prem. And it's designed first and foremost to support high throughput, low latency, eventual consistency for the new world. What ESS Plus is letting us do is in some places denormalize data and store additional data structures so that we can represent back to FileMaker solutions structured data in a way that it expects to see. And so the expectation is that you will be able to take your existing FileMaker solution, take just the data from it and push it into a containerized Mongo instance that we host for you or that you host on-prem. And through ESS Plus, Draco in your solution will access this back end and not know that it's accessing something other than our traditional HBAM storage. That means your solution keeps running without change, but the data is in Mongo, in the new environment. And so you can use our new UI, new elements, new constructs to go work against it as well at the same time. And that's what makes me excited about being able to take people's existing solutions and use them alongside new development. And so now as there are cool features that we stand up that you want to be able to leverage, but maybe we don't have everything you need to completely, replace your existing solution. That's fine. Use the new stuff for a data capture app that you publish out to your customers, but keep the administrative portions in current FileMaker because that solution is baked and working. Cool, you can do that. All running against the same data set.
Janine, a quick interjection. It keeps moving as I try to read it. Ian here was making a point on the S-curve. Dave Simmons was saying, I think it was somebody was saying there's continued growth opportunity for FileMaker as a platform. I totally agree. I absolutely agree. So I think there's some questions on how, and our view is that we have the combination. So we've talked about priorities, right? Priorities are investing in the platform, investing in the community, and investing in awareness in that order. Which is to say the combination of platform and a skilled developer, there's incredible value there. So we're doing more to drive awareness with that combination, aligning with our partners in the sales efforts, creating content for IT so our developers can get through those hurdles, really empowering our existing developers to promote their knowledge of the platform and the impact they could have more broadly on the organization. And with the, sequentially, then we will talk about awareness into other areas. So we see lots of growth potential. And
can you pop that slide back up, Janine? I think that the slide is meant to be taken sort of in a fuzzy generic sense. And you'll see here at the top of the yellow new curve, it doesn't really totally flatten out. It's still going up and up and up, whereas the blue one is totally flattened out in this diagram. And that's probably a mistake. They should probably both be going up at similar trajectories at the, latter years of their life cycle. The point is for us to get this region of really high growth, there are places where we need to take advantage of modern technologies and build some new things. Don't get hung up on the relative slope of the end of the yellow curve versus the relative slope of the end of the blue curve. This is just drawing on a napkin.
Okay, lots of really good questions coming in, everybody. Hang on, I'm just going to scroll through really quickly.
While you're doing that, somebody, Carson's got a question. Is a single solution that can use both native FileMaker tables and NoSQL tables? Honestly, I don't know. We'll figure that out as we go. It probably, for certain is not going to be, the highest priority for first launch for us, but it's the kind of thing I could see absolutely showing up one day. It certainly could. It's part of what Agile is going to mean for us is as we roll out new technologies, we're going to start looking at how they're being used, what opportunities they create, what opportunities then our partners in community are clamoring for once they understand the value of the new things we're bringing to bear, and we'll prioritize accordingly. So I don't see anything strongly technical that would keep that from happening. I just don't see it being a high priority first launch item.
Great. There's also some interest, several questions about desktop client versus web-based. Will the new version of FileMaker be web-based solely? How will it integrate with other things? What's the future of the desktop client?
Well, and I want to be clear, this new stuff is not the new version of FileMaker. It does not replace FileMaker. It sits alongside FileMaker. And absolutely first instances of it are going to be web-based. Now, they can be on-prem served web-based, but they're going to be, at the end of the day, HTML-based apps. There's lots of hokey solutions to wrap those in Electron and things like that. So we'll see how we end up wanting to serve the desktop market. But again, the FileMaker platform isn't going away. So the desktop products will still be there.
Are there any updates or any news regarding FileMaker Go for Android?
Right now, it is certainly deprioritized. Brad can talk about, if he wants to, some of the things that were said about live code or other options. I am pushing right now. I want to get through the early new stuff development here and get to a place where we understand exactly how well the new stuff serves us on all platforms, including Android. I expect it to serve us very, very, very well, and I expect it to dramatically lessen the desire for a native Android client. But again, priorities will be reevaluated constantly as we move forward. But for right now, a really solid, inexpensive web deployment that can probably run cached versions once we get that working, I expect to be a better solution than porting code natively to Android in the short term.
Peter, would you add a little bit about the webby discussions we've had, and then I'll jump back on prior discussions about Android.
I'm not sure what's missing from what I just said. So why don't you lay it out and I'll correct anything I think is wrong or something.
So the discussions I've had with Peter and Wes are the intention to have kind of the most profound experience. A lot of it is guided by or inspired by what we see on iOS, where you have a native client container, but all the user experience is really built on web componentry. And
that's what I meant by an Electron app for those of you know how to wrap web apps for other platforms, et cetera. And it might not be Electron. There are lots of technologies that could do it. But yeah, I expect us to be able to provide a very native feeling application through the current technology stack that we have. And only if we get to a place where we realize that the delta between putting out a truly native Android app and what we can provide through this web stack is significant, I think then would we look at prioritizing a native Android app. But I expect us to be able to close that gap pretty tightly between Webby and native Android.
Yeah, and then to move backwards on communications, we delivered about readiness and kind of near-term expectations for an Android client on FileMaker. As Peter said, it has been deprioritized. It's been deprioritized, as you could probably interpret through, a longer time horizon for what we think would be a better experience and a better set of investments right away. But I think there's some mea culpa in there that we did set expectations that we were soon to launch Android and we didn't. And that's a learning for us. We'll be more cautious about expectation setting, and it's a little bit, which I think for the community means there will have to be slightly more tolerance for answers like we don't know, or it's a not an immediate priority, but it is high in the backlog. I think that's the only way we can communicate in a way that really connects us with the community, because that's the way we're operating. But we missed on Android before.
And Brad and I have met with a number of partners and community members over the last week or so. And one of the things that's absolutely struck me, a few people even, commented, hey, we saw what Robert showed, and wow, that looks pretty thin to be the next thing that you're rolling out. And so I think that the community that's watching DevCons, that's watching Engages, is very, very accustomed to seeing almost finished software by the time they're seeing it. And I really want us getting into a cadence where we are showing stuff early and often. We're showing stuff raw. We're showing bits and pieces of functionality that may not all be stitched together. We're gathering feedback from all of you. And some of that's going to mean we're showing unfinished things. Some of that's going to mean we're going to show things that we're not going to end up shipping because the feedback's not going to be right and we end up retooling it, or we have to retool it when we start stitching things together. But it does mean you'll get much more visibility into what's happening. But then to Brad's point, you're going to have to be comfortable seeing things that are unpolished and give us the latitude to show you things that are unpolished.
I'm going to shift us a little bit to some questions that we're getting that are selfishly near and dear to me. But it's around how we see a path to grow our community of developers, lure in new developers, maybe who are developing on other platforms, and also lessen the barrier of entry through potential freemium options. So Brad, I'm gonna pass that one to you and get your thoughts on how do we lower the barrier of entry for new developers and bring more into our community, and where's our growth path there from your perspective?
Yeah, there's no question a free version of FileMaker would be an answer, a solution. It's attractive in a lot of ways. There are some challenges for us because we have that full developer license that's the same thing as the runtime client that so many of our customers use. So we have to address that, and it's not as high a priority as some other things right now. In part because we think there's a lot of promise about an improved web experience in the short term, where we could have a great deal of control and provide guidance to new developers rather than having them, open the complete platform. In terms of free, we have done a lot to open up for education. The work we've done with Quasar, with 42 Apple Academy, we're actively in discussion with a variety of community colleges and 4-year programs, more for business type students in the case of 4-year, where we want to introduce a development curriculum to them. So I'm throwing a lot in there, I think, to unpack that. I totally hear the point about a free version of FileMaker, and it's heard.
Brad not only hears it, we're discussing it as recently as yesterday, and I'm a fan of a free developer version, for instance. I would like to see as many people touching and playing with this platform, with all aspects of this platform as possible. And so from that end, I'm a huge proponent of some flavor of freemium. I'm a huge proponent of, like I said earlier, making sure the onboarding experience is much better and more seamless than it is, making sure the joy of using the product for the first time is much more intuitive and pleasant than it is. So, yeah, lots to do.
Swinging back towards kind of technology here, I'll jump in with a question for you, Pete.
I'll probably make you answer it.
Perfect. With the talk of a new database engine, what are the goals there? What do we expect to reap as a benefit?
There's a host of goals, and so I will answer it, and then please feel very comfortable chiming in too. If you look at those S curves again, I mean, so much of what we're doing goes back to those S curves in a lot of ways. By standing on top of a database engine that's maintained and grown by thousands of other developers, we get rapid growth and innovation in a lot of cases for free. And that's powerful instead of having to do all of the work internally ourselves. We also get access to an engine that is growing and morphing to serve the needs of other applications that need to integrate with AWS, with Google Clouds, et cetera. And so it's a platform that's growing in ways that are in line with where we need to grow. And that's valuable, specifically around a NoSQL engine itself and a world where, we don't necessarily want hard transaction boundaries the way existing FileMaker solutions require. We'd like eventual consistency for most solutions. Drives massive speed. We'd like the ability to deploy in a multi-tenant world that's impossible to do in a financially sound manner with the existing Draco engine. So there's a host of things I expect to get from the NoSQL world and from the open source nature of Mongo.
Awesome. And to put a fine point on it, all that goodness you just described, that's supposed to coexist with FileMaker? They work harmoniously?
Yeah, they will.
Awesome.
Right, Wes?
Definitely.
No, they will. Part of the beauty of having a modern engine to sit on top of is it's capable of doing a lot. I mean, I'll point, I'm not going to claim to be Apple here, but if you haven't played with an Apple M1 Mac, please do. They're amazing. And their ability to emulate an Intel Mac at speeds that are frankly faster than your Intel Mac is amazing. Sitting on top of the right powerful architecture opens up so many opportunities. So, there was a question in one thread, either on Discord or something like that, about how we're going to help people stand up applications that are normalized properly. And my response to that is, gosh, I don't want you to have to think about normalizing your application properly. And in fact, a lot of what I want to do with Mongo is denormalize a lot of your data. So it's all right there for Draco to go look at in a bunch of different situations. So yeah, we may be storing lots of instances of certain data bits so that they can be accessed by relations and other tables, etc. You'll never care or know as an application developer, because what will feed back to Draco is exactly what Draco expects to see. And that's part of what we're going to get to be able to do with Mongo, with containerization, and with modern processors.
I have a question for Brad around opportunities, to grow with Apple. Can you talk a little bit about the Apple School Manager collaboration and if there may be other opportunities to collaborate with Apple in other markets?
Yeah, I'm hesitant to restate too much of what we've already talked about in the nature of the collaboration. So I'll emphasize, this gives us reach to, a significant multiple of schools that we don't reach today. And that's important. The nature of the collaboration is software driven and go-to-market driven, which is new for us. The nature of the collaboration is also really built around first impressions of Connect, specifically built and optimized for this vertical. So we have a lot of control over how the integrations will work, what systems we are stitching together. And, so in terms of the future, first things first, I mean, let's execute really well on this. And clearly we think there's potential to do more and to do more really well. This does establish a great vertical blueprint for us. And education is our highest performing market. It's about 20% of our business, has been for a long time. There aren't many other verticals that have that, and really, I think the only other vertical that it would have even a double-digit presence for us is kind of broadly healthcare. So it is a really significant, very large opportunity, a big bet for us, and we have high expectations.
Agreed. Keeping in the business space for a minute, less on the tech. Some question around the crowded marketplace that we find ourselves in and some of our competitors. Who do you see Claris and FileMaker, up against in the competition space? There's some names mentioned here in the Q&A, but any insights on the marketplace and the competition around us?
Yeah, I hate naming competitors publicly, so I don't think we have. If you look at our positioning slide, we pretty closely monitor all the platforms across the entire range, and some of the more kind of no code, the left side of low code, we worry about because they're attracting a lot of people who have never thought about building anything. And they're doing that well. Their user experience is really positive. The excitement for that first time success is profound, and that's something we used to do well. So that feels threatening and worrisome, and it incites some anger and competitive fire within the organization. We've seen a very big, massive competitor return. They've been in and out of the space for a long time, and so we know they have staying power. We know they have presence, distribution channels, and then I think there are 40, maybe up to 45 competitors in our space. So there's a lot going on. There are a lot of them. But I just refuse to give them free airtime. So no, I won't speak about
Without
that.
giving names, though, I think one thing I can say from the technical side is there are a lot of smaller new entrants into the space, and some of them are doing some really interesting things, and things that we can, should, and are learning from. And the other thing to remember is that it is much, much harder to build a community like this and to build the capability set that's allowed this community to exist and grow and thrive and prosper than it is to build some of the things that the newer folks have brought to bear. That doesn't mean they should be ignored. I'm not discounting them at all. I'm just saying we are aware of them, like Brad said, and we're looking at what's good there. And the good news for us, for you, is much of what's good there on the smaller upstart side, I think we can incorporate well, or in many cases, incorporate better versions of into our thinking going forward. And you'll see us doing it.
On product related, we'll go back and forth. I'll do the engineering side as Janine does the business side. Um, Going back to the new capabilities that engineering's developing, what are your goals for how that data will migrate to a NoSQL engine? How much effort will be required by a FileMaker developer, a Claris developer to be successful?
Eventually, I want the answer to be none. Day one, there may be some constructs that we can't migrate over without some massaging or without some information and interaction from an end user. There are some few data types and whatnot that don't have a really great home in Mongo, like a decimal data type. FileMaker does some really, really interesting things with its decimal data type. But for the most part, no, most of the data should be able to just slide over. What we're working on heavily too, though, is our authentication model across all the FileMaker platforms. We don't have it done yet, but certainly in my head, the vision is that you provide some credentials, a Claris ID of sorts. You have access to not just your FileMaker Solutions data, but you can see, oh, and I've got these data bits in these clouds, and can just plug into them and slide data into them. That's the hard work stitching things together in the back end that we still need to do and invest in. But in terms of end user effort required, I really hope it's minimal. I don't expect it to be more than that.
All right, I have a question about the Claris brands and our platform of products. Brad, can you speak to, Claris being the company name, FileMaker being the product and the platform? Do we have any intention or plan to change the name of the product? And can you talk more about our brand strategy?
Yeah, let me talk more about the brand strategy, which is, as Andrew mentioned, to focus on Claris. And when we talk about brand strategy, as we did yesterday with the executive team, our intention is to create a consistent branded experience in every interaction with any aspect of Claris, whether that's tech support, an email you receive, a phone call you make to the renewal team, clearly in product, or how we express ourselves visually through communications like this, our tone, our language. So there's a lot of work to do, and brand identity had not been a big investment in FileMaker throughout the years. That there was, the investment was really into product. So, and that's something we have to build deliberately and consistently over time. And the brand identity from a naming perspective will be built around Claris. From a product perspective, we there's a lot of familiarity with FileMaker. There's value in it. There has to be a continued strategic analysis into what the benefits are for Claris by retaining the FileMaker product brand name, as well for our partners and the community. So there's not a plan to eliminate that name. But the top of our architecture brand identity from a naming perspective is Claris.
And kind of not a follow-up necessarily, but can you also elaborate on some of what was mentioned by Andrew during the kickoff about the IT readiness strategy and how we're approaching that? The challenge of overcoming IT barriers and our approach to that as well.
Yeah, I think the good news is from our assessment, the product investments have been made for a long time. The power of the platform, the security investments we've made. What's different is that we're trying. I say that somewhat lightly, but we're gonna try to work with IT, which we just haven't done. It has not been a priority, and there was some opposition by IT as well that made it difficult. We succeeded with these really smart, somewhat rogue attitudes and capable developers building solutions, hiding them under desks, and accomplishing great things. So by approaching IT and recognizing that IT attitudes have shifted, it creates an opportunity for us to let our community very proudly talk about what they've accomplished, the successes they've had, with the opportunity and air cover from us to evangelize other areas of impact that are within reach. So that's what we will, we will treat IT as a persona that we market and message to, and we will create materials and content for our developers so they know how we think about that audience and what we're messaging to that audience with an intention of creating consistent communication. The other investments we've made, so to speak, are getting the third-party attests and certifications, which Andrew also talked about. So that's a component and a proof point of that strategy for us.
Great, thanks. Looking through to see what else we have here.
There's a question, Janine, about dates for Claris Engage 2022, and if so, why it's difficult to find on the website, or do we know what's going on there? Maybe you can talk about that one.
Thanks, Pete. Yeah, so no formal dates announced, but definitely in planning stages for next summer. So TBD and TBA to be announced on more details for next summer, but we do hope and plan to be together. So, and we'll update, the website will update when we have more to share.
There's a question here about helping new entrants into our ecosystem, Brad, and things that we're doing now to help them. Do you want to talk again briefly about efforts to pair new solution developers with partners? Because I don't know if that's been completely heard and understood.
Sure. Our core belief, and we've run a series of pilots to research and validate our core belief, is that when people who are new to the platform, developing for the first time, bringing it into organization, are aware that resources exist, trained professional developers, mentors, trainers, consultants, their confidence increases, their sense of being a part of a community matters, right? I think the notion that they're alone as a first-time developer, figuring out a platform and then putting it, deploying it, right? Getting it in the hands of their customers, likely their boss, maybe other senior executives within the organization, is a high beta. And by messaging upfront that you are not alone, there are trained experts, all over the world, available virtually, available in person, it would be a profoundly confidence-inspiring message to those first-time developers. Will help them deploy sooner, which creates stickiness and long-term value for us. Will help them expand, and has a better possibility, bridging people who are new to the platform with experts is also, our belief, going to make those people better, in a shorter time horizon, so they can also be more productive. And as a platform strategy, a platform that really does nothing out of the box, having more trained developers is critical for us. It is essential to everything we do. I guess for the partners, I know there's a partner meeting coming up, but we'll talk more about specific tactical improvements we're going to make to the website, to in our communication strategy, to those people who are new to the platform, and so tune in for that session. I think we'll, not a matter of spoiling, but that's coming in detail.
It's actually a great transition. So we're coming up to the bottom of the hour, and I want to thank everybody. But it's a great transition just to remind of the upcoming events and sessions that we have planned, a couple of which will, I think, serve well the topic that Brad was just speaking to. So let me, if all right with everyone, send us out on a high note, which would be, again, a reminder of the upcoming sessions. And the next few on September 14th are specifically focused on bringing in those new developers and creating a path to success to help them onboard and adopt and have the skills and resources and access to support needed. So please, if you're interested in learning more about how we're taking an approach to help those new developers, come to those sessions on September 14th and add some insights and share your feedback with us afterwards. Additionally, Brad mentioned the partner session, which is scheduled for September 28th. So if you haven't yet registered and you're a Claris partner, please check the Claris Engage webpage and go click on that for registration details. And we hope that you can join us for that session as well. More sessions coming soon in the coming months. So again, keep that Claris Engage webpage bookmarked if you would, and come back often. And we will look forward to seeing you at as many sessions as you're able to get onto your calendars. We know your time is valuable and we really appreciate your participation and engagement with us. And with that, in our final few minutes, I will just once again thank Brad and Pete and all of the behind the scenes players who are helping to organize your questions as they came in. Thank you to all of you for your very thoughtful questions submitted prior to today and today during this session. We ask, as always, for your continued feedback. So please, the link to the survey for today's Q&A has been dropped in the chat. So please click on that and bookmark it if you don't have time to do it now, but please provide your feedback to us on today's Q&A. We would greatly appreciate it. We're always looking for ways to improve. It is an agile world nonetheless, and Claris is no exception. So please let us know what you liked and what we can do better in the future. And I will just pause really quickly here to say, Brad, Pete, Wes, any final parting thoughts to add before we say farewell to everyone?
Let's keep doing this.
I think the session's great. I really appreciate the energy, enthusiasm coming from the audience, and we're all trying to monitor the Q&A and Discord and everything else happening here in the community. So I think it's a great format. Everybody's incredibly respectful, and we recognize the opportunity to harness the energy of our customers. And if doing more of this accomplishes that, we'll be happy to sign up for it. So to the internal team who nudged Peter and I to do this, kudos to you, Janine, Wes, Rosemary, the community team. This is fantastic. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks everybody. And great to be with you all. Hopefully we'll get to see you again soon and in person one of these days again. That would be great. We miss all of you. But thanks for joining us.